My name is Victoria, and I'm here to talk about growing up in a domestic violence environment. And I'm also Hispanic, so that is kind of common in that culture, which is very unfortunate. But it's something that I wear with pride now, because without going through this experience, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So when I was young, I had two best friends. I had Nancy and Monica. And Monica, I met first. I met her in preschool. And she ends up becoming kind of like the third sibling between my brother and my brother Jack. It's just us two. And then Nancy, I met her in kindergarten. So they were my two main best friends from, well, Monica, I still speak to this day. And then Nancy, I kind of stopped talking to her around like 19, just because, time, things drift and things change, but nothing but love for that girl. And like her family kind of took me in as their own. Her mom was actually the only adult I remember ever telling anything about, my parents, like really telling her like everything, like what was happening. And I remember in the beginning with Nancy, actually, my mom didn't want me to going over there. She would always be like, oh, can I pick up your daughter? Can I do this? Can I do that? My mom was always like, no, no, no. And then one day, Nancy's mom called my mom and was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I would really appreciate if you could let your daughter come to my house, because she had a younger daughter who unfortunately passed away. And when I was around, her daughter, Nancy, wouldn't ask about her baby sister anymore, because we were 5 years old and her baby sister was about 3 when she passed. So, it's when you're 5, you don't understand, why is this baby just gone all of a sudden? So when my mom heard that story, she was like, take her whenever you want. She's yours. And what was really funny is her and I had the same last name. So everybody really thought we were sisters.
Yeah.
And then in school, you know how they put you alphabetically. We always sat next to each other.
I love that.
And her mom would pick us up and even dress us alike. So I feel like we came into each other's lives.
It's meant to be.
Where they needed me and I needed them, because that was the house where I learned that not all dads are mean. Because her dad was so sweet. So sweet. I loved her dad. Her parents loved them. I really, really appreciate everything they did for me. Because I remember they took me to Disneyland when I was like 9 years old. And my mom's like, I took you, but she shows me the picture. I'm in a stroller. I'm like, how am I supposed to remember that? But they did a lot for me. She really took me under her wing as her daughter. And I appreciate that so, so much. And I was happy that when it was our quinceañeras, because, in the Mexican culture, that's the big deal. And I actually found her around that time so they could come to my party at least. And they came. And then same thing for her. She invited me to hers because they were kind of around the same year, because my birthday is first in the beginning of the year. And then hers was later in the year. So we were able to be at each other's event, which was really cool. And just being in that house with them just really showed me what I was missing at home, because I have an older brother. And in the Mexican culture, the boys are the kings. You do everything. Like, I tell my brother, even to this day, I'm just like, I felt like you were my first kid, because I used to wash his laundry. I used to cook for him. The only thing I didn't do was clean his room. Yeah, he helped around the house and he did his part, because our only rules growing up were have grades better than a C, do your chores, and you can do whatever you want. So when you look at that, that's a little too much freedom for us, And then my brother, now being a father of 5 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, he has 5 beautiful children, which I love them all. And his wife is amazing, Judy. She is a stay-at-home mom. Great. I'm very proud of my brother to grow up what we grew up in, to come out the husband and father he is. Oh, it's amazing. It's incredible to watch. It's awesome that him and we broke our cycles.
Absolutely.
I didn't end up, I'm single right now, but it's because I don't have a good picker. My dad was my biggest influence. My mom was always working. If she wasn't sewing, because she's a seamstress, actually, that's what she did for work before she got into real estate. And that was my whole life, was her sewing and sewing and sewing. And my dad, he never really worked. He was just kind of there all the time, and it was just her hustling. And then when my brother got older, he helped financially. He wasn't very happy about helping, 16 years old, getting your job. And around that time, my brother was very selfish, very, very selfish. Now he's not. He's a very man of God and loving and caring and giving. But, sometimes you got to go through some selfish things to evolve. And he has evolved a lot. And I'm very proud of him. But growing up, I was very under his shadow a lot. It was always like, how there's a golden child and then the scapegoat? My brother was the golden child. I was a scapegoat. Because no matter what my brother did, it was perfect, especially to my dad. Like, be more like him. Be more like Jack. You need to be smarter like this. And that's all I heard my whole life was, and even when I did good, it wasn't good enough for him. So I learned kind of early on, doesn't matter what I do, he's not going to care to give me positive reinforcement, even if I am doing something good, So I kind of took advantage of that. So anytime they gave me my freedom, because I wasn't very good with school. So my thing was always, I need to have C's and I could do whatever I want. That's it. He'll be off my back if I have a C. And he would be. If I had C's in all my classes, he'd leave me alone. Except for me, I couldn't just leave the house like my brother could. My brother had free reign to just, I'm going to skate park, going with my friend, going here, I'm going there. Me, I had rules basically, okay, if you want to leave, you have to make me freshly squeezed orange juice, grapefruit juice, cupcakes. That was my ticket out of the house. Like if I wanted to leave at all, and so it was annoying for me, my brother coming home, do his one chore really fast, and then he just bolt out the door. And then me, I'm in the kitchen doing all this and then I didn't have no electric thing. So I was there and now to this day, I have hand issues. My dad also has arthritis. So I'm like, I know that's part of it. I'm also a cleaner. I have my own cleaning business. So I know all that doesn't help. So it's just, I could feel it in my hands. And even to this day, I can't drink freshly squeezed orange juice. I don't like grapefruits because of that. I will only eat cupcakes that my niece Becky that lives with me makes. I just don't, it just triggers me. I can't deal. Because for Christmas, sometimes that's what he would buy me was an electric juicer. Or sometimes his sisters, my aunts, would do that. And everybody would just think it's funny. But for me, I'm like, you really don't understand what that means to me. That stupid little machine is my ticket out of the house for anything. And anytime they gave me okay, go with your friend, I'd be gone. And back then there was no cell phones, so, and then when cell phones started kind of coming out and they'd be like, hey, your mom's calling me. Don't answer it. Yeah. I'm not here. I'm not even going to lie. I used to say that. I'm like, don't answer. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, say your phone died. I don't know. I'm like, I'll deal with her later when I want to get picked up. And that's what I would do. Because they would always tell me, your brother's always calling when he gets home or wherever he goes. Because that was the rule. You leave, you have to call when you arrive and to let us know where you are or where you're going to be. Just being an adult now, they were being parents wanting to know where their kids were. But for me, I was just annoyed because I didn't see them have so much to my brother. You have to do this, this, and this. But with me, I felt like I had 100 rules over him for everything. And it was hard, because if I did something wrong, my punishment would be 10 times worse than his. He had an incident where things were really bad. And if I had gotten caught in that type of incident, it would have not been pretty for me. And for him, they gave him his car back the next day. And I was just like, one time I snuck out my window with a friend and they caught us. And I come home, my mom takes my friend home, and that was probably the one night I remember my dad hitting me. And don't get me wrong, yes, I jumped out the window. You shouldn't be doing that. I was probably in junior high around that time. But that's not the punishment you give to your kid. I'm like, he hit me, and then I remember just being on the floor and he was kicking me. And I remember my mom coming down the hallway screaming, stop. And then my dad always had this look of the devil when that part would take over him. Truly, it wasn't him. Because my dad, he has a good heart. He is a good person. I'm not going to lie. It's just his demons have, taken over his life. And I don't know what he grew up in. I don't know what the house was like. And because knowing what I know now, it's your environment that makes you this way. But there's no one to blame. I love my grandparents. But my dad's one of 6 kids, and for 4 of those kids to become abusers to their partners or children, my cousin Rachel and I would talk all the time of like, what do you think it was like with our grandparents? Because, look at my mom, and, look at our tios and your dad, and, what was their environment like, And later in life, I took a big part in raising a couple kids, because I don't have kids of my own. If I refer to any of my kids, it's my 3 nieces, my nephew, and then my godson. Those are the kids that are like my kids, because I took a big part in raising them. Like around 2020, my god sister Christina, she took custody. They're her sister's kids, or she took guardianship, I should say, not custody. And so I just jumped in to help her. And we went from being young 20-year-olds partying and only babysitting the girls here and there to now we got 4 kids and she's pregnant. So we had 5 kids out of nowhere. And, and now, the kids are all, the girls are 20, 19, and 18. The youngest girl is about to graduate this year. And then my nephew, he had some struggles, and I know why he came into my life, because he taught me to have sympathy for my father. Because I looked at him, and we had to go through all these therapies with the kids due to their stories. And every time I look at them, I would look at my niece, and I'm just like, I relate to her so much. And then hearing what the therapist is saying, like, oh, she acts this way because of this, or this could have happened, or this could have happened. My wheels started turning. What happened to me? Why do I used to be just like her when I was young. She's a little bit more mouthy than I was, and a little more brave in certain areas, but I relate a lot to her. I can understand where her pain comes from, and I'm just like, knowing what's happened to her, I'm just like, what don't I remember? What happened to me that made me that way? And then I look at my nephew, and I'm just like, he reminds me so much of my dad. I'm just like, my dad was the youngest of 6 kids. So he was just keep him alive, just bring him. Is he there? I know how it is once there's a lot of kids. The last couple ones, they kind of get a little forgotten about, if I'm quite honest. Sometimes you're just making sure they're breathing in there. You're not, it's hard to give so many kids, individual attention. So I'm grateful that those kids came into my life, because it made me look at my dad so much different, because he, hurt people. And most abusers were abused themselves. So it's like, as much as highly I hold my grandparents, it's just like what was okay in their time that is not okay now, and seeing too, as an adult, watching my mom with her own dad and the relationship with him, because, my grandfather, he passed away, 2 years ago now, I believe. And a little before he passed away, we were visiting him a lot. And I remember sitting at a table with him, because we would go bring him tacos and kind of hang out with him a little bit, because he lives in Mexico, or he lived in Mexico. And I remember my mom, her trying to tell him something like serious. I don't remember what it was, but it was something about her childhood. And I remember he just kind of got quiet and ignored her and didn't acknowledge what my mom said. And then I was just looking, I'm like, this is why she never saw an issue with the relationship with my dad, because the relationship with her father was very similar, So I'm like, this is why.
So you know how there's just those certain things that maybe you go to a friend's house and you're like, I love that, I need it in my house. Well, let me just tell you, that is what Cozy Earth has become in this household right here. Their bamboo sheet set has completely spoiled us, because once you sleep on it, you will never want to sleep on something else. Take my word for it. It is crisp, it's cool, it's soft. It also just looks so luxurious in my opinion. It's not one of those sheets that you wash at one time and then you're like, ugh, it just doesn't look the same. The quality went down. No, the quality remains with every single wash, and the sleep, the comfort, 10 out of 10. And then for the guys in our lives, we have the everyday polo, the everyday pant, which is literally the definition of just showing up this summer with effortless and chic style. These are the kind of pieces that somehow look nice enough to wear out, but are comfortable enough that you end up wanting to wear them all of the time. One of my favorite reviews that I actually read was that somebody bought the everyday pant and they wore them once and they loved them so much that they had to go back and buy 3 more pairs, which I totally get because they are wrinkle-free, they're breathable, they're comfortable, and like I mentioned before, they're just this pant that you can really have the comfort in, but you can also dress it up, dress it down with some sneakers, run errands, go out for dinner in them. It is like the one pant that you can do everything in and you're comfortable the whole time. So what more could your guy ask for? What I really appreciate about Cozy Earth is that they completely stand behind their products. So they offer a 100-night sleep trial with all of their sheets, lifetime warranty on all of their clothing, and hassle-free returns for something just doesn't work out right for you or you want to try something else, whatever it might be. Returns are made super easy, which is always very important and key to me. This summer should be made easy for everybody. So whether you are getting Cozy Earth to sleep in or to wear, you will be comfortable. You will feel like you can breathe. You will feel cozy. You will feel chic and luxury and everything in between. So head to CozyEarth.com and use my code INSANE for an exclusive 20% off. That's code INSANE for an exclusive 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, mention that you heard about Cozy Earth right here.
Because I've never been angry at my mom for what I've experienced ever. And now I'm not even angry at my dad. I used to be. I used to have a lot of anger and hatred. And like I said, with my nephew, he taught me to have more love and compassion. And I've just learned to take the good moments when I can, because I can't help my dad. He has to help himself because it's always someone else's fault, and my father is also a drug addict. So drug addicts are very erratic. So having a narcissistic drug addict as a father and Mexican on top of that is just a lot.
Recipe for disaster.
It really feels that way. Yeah. And truthfully, I'm so grateful that they only had 2 kids because if my mom would have had more kids, I don't think she would have left my dad. Honestly, I really, really don't think she would have, because I give a lot of credit to her actually leaving to me and her mom passing. Because if her mom didn't pass away when she did, I don't think she would have had the courage to leave my dad. Because my grandma, her mom, she knew. My grandma Alba, which is not her name, but I'm a big Jane the Virgin fan, and the grandma in that show reminds me so much of my grandma. That's going to be her name because she's so much like her. Although my grandma was not a woman of many words, but she was very wise anytime she did talk about anything. Anything was amazing. You wanted to listen when my grandma spoke. And my dad was afraid of that grandma, actually. I remember my dad telling me when I was a kid, I remember him looking at something, he's all, "Who gave that to you for me?" I was like, "Oh, my nana." And then he's all, "It's okay, I'll go get my own." And I'm like, "What is wrong?" And then later my mom tells me, she's like, "No, I think my mom tried to poison him one time. So he didn't like to get anything from my grandma."
Right.
And so because he would act like a really, really good boy when my grandma would come. Because there would be random times because my grandma lived with my aunt Xiomara in San Bernardino. So anytime she'd get mad at my aunt, she'd call my mom and be like, "Come pick me up. I'm done. I don't want to look at your sister." So we'd go pick her up. And I remember there was this one period, I don't remember how young I was. I think it was around elementary school. We were still living at the apartments across the junior high. So I was still pretty young. And I just remember things were so bad for I don't know if it was 2 weeks or what. It felt forever. And it was just every single day. He would just pick at me and my mom so much. And it was the moment my brother would leave, he would start picking at us. So it was when my brother was home, he was on his good behavior. He never wanted to show that side to my brother. He was very, very strategic about what he did and when he did it and how he did it. So I remember it was just hell every day. Me and my mom were just suffering. And then out of nowhere, my mom gets one of those calls from my grandma saying, "Come pick me up right now." And anytime, my dad hated that. He hated when my mom went to go. Anytime we even went to my aunt Xiomara's house, it was a nightmare. I hated going to her house. When I was young, I did have a little resentment towards her because anytime we went, even to her house for an hour, I would have to listen to my mom getting beat for almost that whole week just because we went to spend time with her sister, just because we wanted to see my grandma. Like that's why I hated going to my mom's side of the family when I was young, because I just didn't want to deal with what was going to happen when we got home. Truthfully, I hated it so much. And that's why I had so much resentment towards her. And even to this day, we bicker a lot. Like I bicker with my aunt like she's my sister.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I always say my mom had a younger sister pass away. And I always say, I feel like a part of her soul came in me, because I shouldn't fight with my aunt the way I fight with her. Like we fight like sisters. And anytime she tried to help, it just made things worse. Anytime she tried to help. So I just remember, I'm like, we're going to go pick my grandma up then. And we went to pick her up, and she ended up staying with us for like a month. It was wild. But it was like me and my mom both felt like this just angel came, and because you could tell my dad was so annoyed. He was so annoyed that she was there and she wasn't leaving. Like, because she wouldn't go back until she was ready to deal with my aunt. So there'd be times she'd stay with us and she'd sleep in my bed, So for me, I'm like, I sometimes I'd hate it. It was always my room that everybody had to sleep in. But at that time, I was so happy my grandma was there. Like not only did I need it, my mom needed it. Like we needed peace. And it's like, if she knew we needed peace, because it was one of the worst times ever, because he was hitting her almost every day. He was picking at me. Anything I did, anything. Like I couldn't even eat things in the fridge once my mom left. Like to this day, I can't eat mini wheats, the frosted mini wheats. Those were his favorite. Like red vines, I can have very minimal, because my dad was always walking around with his big tub of red vines and his big thing of frosted mini wheats and be like, you can't have any. Like, so as a kid, that, it sounds dumb, but it's like, I don't like frosted mini wheats because it reminds me of him. Like with his big old bowl, and just watching him look at me. Like he would look at me with so much hatred. Like I was just like, what did I do to you? Like, why do you have so much anger towards me? Because my whole life, I always heard the same story of when I was born. Because when I was born, my parents lived in a little garage, because my mom came out here. My parents were 19. No, my mom was 19 and my dad was 21. And she was pregnant with my brother, not knowing the language, So it's hard when you come here and have no family, no support system. They created their own families. I kind of have two little families from my mom and my dad that are my family now, my chosen families, They had to create their village because their village was in Mexico, but now they're all over here. I'm like, so now we're all here, and it's like, why'd she struggle so much? They weren't there, Without my cousin Christina, her mom, I don't know what my mom would have done, because my aunt, Christina's mom, and then my aunt Catherine, those two, I always say I had 5 moms, and those two are one of them, because they were there when my mom needed someone. It's hard, raising kids and taking care of them. I think since my grandma was married to a man who would abuse her, and my grandma had 5 kids, and one of the things she did say, she was like, if you say no, that's rape. And it's like, why is that one thing she really wanted to tell my mom? Like, if you say no, that means it's rape. Like, that just breaks my heart, because that means that's what happened to my grandma, And my mom, my mom and my dad divorced when I was in high school, right before I was like 17, 18. A lot was happening at the same time, like when all that happened. But we'll get into that a little later. Another thing that my dad used to like to do as punishment to me, when he'd get mad at me, is he would break my things. And he'd do it when I wasn't around. Because like that night when I jumped out the window, when my mom went to go drop my friends off, he proceeded to break everything in my room when my mom was taking them. And I'm like, that's not a punishment fit for someone who jumped out of a window. Like, yeah, I got grounded on top of that, which I saw coming. But it's like, he broke my TV. He broke anything he could find in my room. He just trashed it. And then he was making me stand outside the whole time when that happened. And I just remember thinking, I was just like, why is this my punishment? And then it was later when that incident happened with my brother that I'm just like, so why aren't you breaking all his shit? Why aren't you breaking his car? I'm like, because he did something bad in the car and you're just going to give it back to him? Like,
Yeah.
he gets caught in the car doing something bad and you're just going to let him watch TV and give him his keys back the very next day. That right there, that's when I was like, it doesn't matter what I do. He's perfect and I'm not. So that's when I was just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. And I started drinking when I was 13. I started drinking with my cousin Rachel. I used to go to Mexico. That is one thing that I did love about my parents, is that every summer since we were kids, how old was I? Like 3 when I first went out there? They would leave us out there for the whole summer with our family. So that's something I did enjoy, because you don't get a lot of one-on-one time with your first cousins. And especially on my dad's side, from 6 kids came 15 grandkids, and I'm number 14. So it was pretty cool to, I love having the memories of my dad's parents in their house that my grandpa built with his own hands, and all 15 of us are there, just running amok. There's some up on the roof. There's some in the driveway. There's some sleeping on the couch. My grandma's over here like cutting nopales, making beans. Like one of the older girls is washing dishes. Like, it was beautiful memories. And I'm very grateful because they humbled me a lot. They made me appreciate living in America because I used to have to shower boiling water. I'm always the first one. When there's a house like that you have to boil the water, I wake up first and I'm like, I'm first. Yeah. That's me. I'm like, I get the first. Oh yeah, please. I'm like, I want to shower first. Like, so, I'm glad that they did that, and that was my dad's idea. My dad, because it started when my brother was like 4. They went to go visit and he was like, I want to stay. And they're like, no. They're like, yeah, I want to stay. You guys go home. And they're like, mijo, we live far. Like, we live 3 hours away. We can't just go get you. Like, if we leave, we're going to have to come back on the weekend to get you. So that's how it started. They just left us a weekend. And then as I got older, I'm like, why is he just going and I'm not? Like, what the heck? Like, I want to go too. And I was like 2, 3 years old, packing my own bag, being like, I'm going with them. I've always been very independent. Very, very independent since I was little. And one of my brother's oldest daughter, she's like that. Like, she has like my essence. And I'm just like, oh my God. And watching my brother with her, it heals the little girl in me because he's such a good dad. Oh, that part gets me so much because he heals me being the father he is. And I tell him that all the time. I really do. Like, my brother and I, we don't have a typical brother-sister relationship where we hate each other. I actually love my brother so much. Like I said, he was like my baby. Like, even though he's 5 years older than me, I did so much for him that I felt like I was raising him, even though it sounds weird, but the boy wouldn't even make his own cup of noodles, girl. Like, he would literally come to my room and be like, can you make me a cup of noodles? And my friends would always be like, he's really coming to ask you that? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go do it. And I would do it for him, And I know that's more of like a cultural thing, you take care of the men. You always feed the men first. And I'm trying to not be that way because I kind of don't like it. It should be even, That's the one thing about my culture I don't like. Women are actually the ones that really run and take care of everything. Most of the men just bring money. And that's where, when I was getting older, I would get frustrated because I'm just like, why do you think you're so this and that when you don't even work? I'm like, your wife is over here working and all this. And I remember him stealing money from her. I remember one time we went to the bank, and that was back when you used to have to go to the bank to get your statement to know how much money you had. And she went, and I just remember sitting, how like they have you sit over there when you're a kid and stuff. And I just remember her coming back to the car and she's crying. And I'm just like looking at her, and she's like, just upset. And I'm staring at her, and she's like, I can't believe he did this. And I'm just like, what is she talking about? And he forged checks in her name. So she had like no money in her account because he's just writing checks like if he has $1 million and it's his money. And he would steal money from her. And as we got older, he would steal money from us, my brother and I. Like, my brother, he used to have this pencil box. And he knows about this because I confessed it to him later. That me and where is she? Me and Monica used to steal his money all the time. Because I told him one time we were drinking, I was like, brother, I kind of owe you like a lot of money. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, me and Monica used to go in your room and steal your money so we could buy snacks because my dad wouldn't let me have anything in the fridge. Like when she wasn't there, he'd be like, nope, that's mine. That's mine. And I totally forgot all about that until Monica came to visit a couple years ago. She started mentioning it and she's like, do you not remember that? She's like, why do you think we used to steal money from your brother? And then I was like, you're right. I did forget about all that. And she's like, I remember everything. Because she was like my bad friend. She didn't have the greatest relationship with her mom. And she lived right up the street from me. So anytime she was bad and she didn't like, or she got in a fight with her mom and she left. So, there's that one friend that's like friends with the whole world. Mm-hmm. That's her.
Yeah.
So she would always have a ride somewhere. And I used to have my own phone line in my room. So she would call me and I'd answer and I'm like, hello. And one time I remember even I'm like answering half asleep. I'm like, hello. And then I hear my dad on the phone. And I was like, what? And she's like, I'm already walking in your house. And I was like, huh? Because it was so late. And then she opens the door because she knew my dad was always awake because he was always high on his drugs. He would never he'd be awake for a week and then sleep for a week. Mm-hmm. Like that's how it was. So if he wasn't awake for a week, he'd be asleep and we had to be quiet. So it was like either we had an empty house because we had like a spare room in those apartments where he could go and do his madness. And two, he would also take over the bathroom and do his drugs in there. And that, I hated it so much because he would be in there like 8 hours and that'd be the only bathroom. So I grew up having extra bags in my room to go to the bathroom because he would not open the door. And I would get in trouble if I tried to have him get out. So I just learned to figure it out on my own. Like, a lot of people, there's been instances in my life as like an adult or when I'm out with friends partying that I'm like, I'll just go right here. I'll just don't look at me, turn around. I have no shame going to the bathroom places because when I was younger, I didn't have an option. When you have to go, you just have to go and you got to figure something out. So that's why that's never bugged me. I've always been very like, just pull over, just really fast. I'll go behind that tree. I don't care. And that's something that I'm really trying hard to stop because I'm now noticing where that came from. Mm-hmm. It's side effects of the trauma I went through. Because no kid should have to do that, have to use trash bags to go to the bathroom in their own house just because their dad is, who knows, he was probably so high and passed out on the floor that he couldn't even open the door if he wanted to, I don't know what he would do when he was in there. So it's insane to really look back on everything and be like, damn, I can't believe all this is happening. And there would be times I'll talk to my mom about stuff and she's like, I'm such a bad mom. And I'm like, you were in survival mode. Like you were feeding us. You were the one doing everything. Like we were lucky we were on-site managers that our rent was covered, So, but we had to work on the building.
Did your dad ever work?
He would have jobs and then he would get fired, do unemployment. There was one pocket of time where our family felt normal. And that was when I have, out of the 15 grandkids, there's a set of twins. And they are Mark and Derek. And they came to live with us. And it was because of my dad, actually. My dad, we were there for the summer. And in Mexico, school is very different. So I remember, I think it was like their last year over there or something like that. And my dad was like, oh no, I'm going to take them with me. And his sister's just like, what? Mm-hmm. Like me, if it's like I go up to my brother and be like, I'm going to take your 2 kids 3 hours away and they're going to be mine now. No, but he did it, and now they're thriving. They're, one is married with 3 kids and they own a home in San Bernardino area. Like they owe a lot to my dad, and they always, they love me and stuff, but they're just like, it's hard to kind of sympathize with how you feel with your dad because he did so much good for us, and my dad, he taught me to have a good heart because he was always helping people, always. We always had people coming to live with us for pockets of time. So when he brought the boys over, he had a job that had insurance for all 4 of us. So we were this little family with 4 kids. And that was probably one of my favorite times in my life because we were normal.
Yeah.
My dad was working. And it was a pretty good job for him to have family insurance for everybody.
So do you think that it was a big part of the abuse was from the drug use?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it would just, take him over, honestly. And I feel like in the beginning when we were younger, he was able to control the drug use. So
Yeah.
it didn't, it didn't blur the line. So he was still able to be kind of normal. It was more after he got diagnosed with his arthritis that he kind of just started to give up. And then when my mom became an official, like a property manager, she got her real estate license, he was just like, okay, you got it from here. I don't need to do nothing. He kind of was just like, all right, we're good.
And then was the abuse really only directed towards you and your mom, or was it ever towards your brother as well? Or
Never my brother.
Okay.
Ever. It was mainly my mom. For me, it was more verbal and emotional. It was just that one time that he actually physically hit me. And then it was just mainly the physical was more my mom.
Okay.
Like I told her this recently. I was like, I have your laugh. And she's like, what? I was like, we have the same laugh. And I never knew what my mom's laugh sounded like when I was a kid. And she's like, what do you mean? We used to have fun. I'm like, you don't get it, Mom. I was there. I'm like, I remember your happy times when we were a family to your happy times now. I've never seen her how she is now. And I love that. It heals me so much seeing her. Like, even getting on this plane was a big deal for her. So I love that we're breaking all these cycles, because we're alive. First of all, we made it out. There is life after abuse. There is a way out. Even though it's really hard. And you just want to go back. That's why women go back. Because they say, oh, it takes 6 times. No, it takes about 12 to leave. Because it took her a long time. Honestly, like I said, if her mom didn't die, I don't think she would have really made the decision to leave. Mm-hmm. But my dad just, and that's where I would get so confused, because growing up as a kid, your dad is your first love. As a girl, that's why I'm just like, why do I have such a bad picker? And I look back at my relationships, I'm like, so many of these men had traits of my father that I felt safe with. But it's like, no, I need to go towards where I feel a little uncomfortable, because if I feel safe, that means there's something wrong. That means something is feeling familiar. Yeah. And now I'm starting to realize that, because since my dad was my biggest influence, in my, elementary years, my friends can attest, I'm lucky that I even still have friends, because I was a lot like my dad. And it took me a long time to realize, he taught me how to manipulate. He taught me how to be mean. And for me, I used to be very like, oh, if you like her, I'm not your friend. Like, I was like that. I was very like that. And there's no need to be that way at all. But that's how my dad kind of showed me. My examples of love were him, or, I always thought, oh, if you're obedient and you just do what they say, that's love, or if you control them, that's love. So I'm like, now it makes sense why all of my relationships have not worked out, because that's where my how to love someone, so little by little it's changing. And, that's why I'm like, I'm just going to stay single until I meet somebody that actually has the right intentions for me and not rush into things. Because I'm 32 years old, I'm Mexican, no children. What do you think I hear from my family all the time? Like, I have nieces that are younger than me that are married on their second children, and I'm over here, 32, no kids. But it's like, having a child shouldn't define me being successful. Having a child shouldn't define me being like, I made it and I'm a good woman. I'm a great woman. And that's because of my mom. And even my dad, he always told me, don't be a helpless woman. And that always stuck in my head. And you know what that tells me? He knew what he was doing, telling me that. And he said that to me very young. Don't be a helpless woman. He's like, don't let a man do everything for you. So I'm very hyper independent. If I ask you for help, it's because I already tried to do it myself 10 times and I couldn't figure it out. Right. Like, I don't like to ask for help. I really don't. But I do when I really need it. And that's something that my mom had to learn, like, very young. Like I said, I've always been very independent. Like, I taught myself, I potty trained myself, and I wasn't even 1 year old yet. Like, I started walking very young, and then looking at my niece, she's like the same way. She potty trained herself, basically. She didn't like the diaper, so I'm just like, it's so funny how, genetics and DNA work, because it's like I'm not around her enough for her to have that. I got it. Like and she's more spunky than I am, but it's just because she has a very different support system and surrounding that she's growing up in, and that's why she feels so confident. For me, I was confident because no one would listen to me. I've always been like the fighter and screamer, and because my brother's the quiet one, I'm the loud one. I'm the like, no, like in those videos of the mom that's like, oh, honey, can you? And then the aunt comes in the back. That's me. I'm the one that's like, get down now. I'm not joking. Like, I do agree that tough love can work because the world isn't nice to you, and sometimes getting tough love from someone that you love can teach you how to take criticism from people. It's just my dad wasn't doing his tough love, quote unquote, with love. He was doing it for control. If I do that to my nieces and nephews, it's just because I'm doing it with love. Because one day you may be somewhere where someone's going to speak to you in that manner, and you need to know how to handle it instead of crying or reacting. Just because if I'm doing it to you, and that's what I do now, even with my kids. Anytime I lose my stuff, because there's times where my dad comes out of me, and I'm just like, oh, and I wait till I'm calm, and then I go and I apologize to them. Because that's one thing that I never had when I was younger. Anytime something big would happen, anytime they would fight, nobody would talk about it. It was never talked about. There was only one time that my mom and I talked about it. And it was because they got into another fight. They used to always fight too when I was on the phone with my friends. So I used to always abruptly have to hang up and unplug my phone, because then they'd call me and call me and call me. And then I can't answer my phone with my mom screaming in the back and my dad hitting her. And this one time he was hitting her, I hung up the phone, and he was hitting her really bad. I just remember. And I remember she came in the room and she was pissed that I didn't call the cops. And I was just, I was scared and crying. And then I remember somehow we ended up leaving to go get him soda, something. I don't remember very clearly. I just remember we were able to leave the house. And she was all like, why didn't you call, and this and that? And in my head, I'm like, for what? You're not going to leave him. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you're just going to stay. Why am I going to call the cops? And everybody knew where I lived. Everybody knew that house in front of the junior high was my house. They knew it. I'm like, so what? We're going to have the cops come, and then everyone's going to be saying things. That's all that's coming to my head while she's yelling at me. And then I just looked over. I was like, why don't you hit him back? That's all I said. I was like, you're taller than him. You're bigger than him. Like, my dad's a little shorter than my mom. He's a little scrawny. So it's kind of funny that my brother's really tall, because I'm like, where did you get that from? I'm like, he's like 6 foot almost. So, and my dad, he's probably like my height. Like, my mom would wear heels and she'd be taller than him. Not a lot, but like, I'm just like, why don't you hit him back? Like, you can, And I just remember seeing her face being like she never thought of that, And then I remember a few weeks later, they get into another fight. And then this time I hear them arguing. And this was the one time that I actually sat there and watched like a movie, because she hit him back. Because we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. So it was like a long hallway, and then the bedrooms were at the ends. So mine was so like when you're looking straight at it, was like on the right side. It was the front bedroom. That, how in the house is the window that's in the front, that was my room. So I remember I heard them arguing, and all the time I would hear them fight or something, I would always kind of peek out and maybe close the door or something. But that time I peeked out because I heard my dad be like, what the fuck? And then I looked over and I don't remember what she had in her hand, and I just see her throw it at him. And I saw my dad's face being like, when does she, like, I could see in his face, like, when the fuck she get so brave? And he grabbed, it was like a 5-gallon water thing, and it didn't have a lot of water, and he like threw it at her, and she was just like soaked, and she got all this adrenaline. I forgot what she grabbed, and she just started going at him. And I was sitting there at the end of the hallway, just like, finally. I was like, she did something, thank God, because she'd never defend herself. She would always just take it. Like, I know my mom screams from a mile away. Just like a mom knows when her baby's crying, when then it's her baby crying. I unfortunately know that of my mom too, because that's all I heard when I was young. I know her scream. I know her cry when she's scared and upset. I know all of that because it's all I heard when I was young. So being an adult now, I rarely see her cry. I rarely see her in pain. It's beautiful. It's amazing because my mom and I lost so much time during that time because she was always working. She was always working, always. And if she wasn't working, she was sewing in my bedroom till 4 a.m. And that's why I can't sleep in quiet because she was always sewing in my room. And I just remember after that, and she still didn't leave him after that instance because we were still living in the apartments. And we lived in those apartments for about 13 years. And then we got kicked out because of him, because I think one of the residents called the management company or something that he was like selling drugs or doing drugs or both. I don't know. And so we lost the job around that time. But my mom, when my mom has a goal, she accomplishes it. And around the time when I was 13, we had gone to a wedding to her Mary Kay lady, actually. And this hall was beautiful. And around 13 is kind of, in the Hispanic culture is kind of when you're like, okay, if we're going to have a quinceañera, maybe we need to start thinking about it. Well, after we went to this wedding, the couple they sat us with, this lady convinced us. And I think it was maybe like the next month, we went to that place and we talked to the people and my mom booked the hall. Because they told them, they're like, our prices are about to go up next year. So they're like, if you book it now, and this hall had everything. She threw me the most beautiful party. I don't need a damn wedding.
Right.
I do not. Enough. That was my wedding. I don't care. That's why for me, I'm like, because the stress of planning that party, oh my God. No, thank you. No, thank you. Like even when my brother got married in Vegas, you'd think eloping would be easy. It was not. That was, it was just a show. Like getting hotel rooms and traveling and, it was wild. But I think we're probably like a year and a half into planning everything. And my dad's dad passed away. And I remember for a little while, I was kind of like thinking, I'm like, I don't want this party. Like, I don't want it. Because my biggest thing of why I wanted a quinceañera, I saw 3 of my cousins, and one of them is actually my godmother. I saw 3 of my cousins. Well, I didn't see my godmother. I don't think I was born yet for hers, but I've seen all the movies, and they all got to dance with my tata. That's what I wanted, was that dance. Like, they all got it. And then he died right before my party. And I remember I was kind of telling him, like, I don't know if I want it anymore. And then I remember my grandma calling me and she was like, no, because he was trying to make it to my party. I remember the last time I saw him in the hospital, he used to always say, yo soy como el Batman, no me voy a morir. Like, I'm not going to die, because Batman lives forever, right? He used to always say that. But I remember looking at him on that bed and he was just yellow. Like, and I'm like, he's not going to make it. Like, he's not. And he didn't. He didn't make it, but it's okay. I had my party. I did it anyway. And if it wasn't for my mom and my brother,
no, you're fine.
And my brother too. My brother really, he helped so much with that party. He was working doubles. He was just anything that could make him money, he was doing it so I can get what I needed. Because the photographer alone was $2,000. My mom did not have that. And my mom took out loans on her cars. I didn't know any of that until I got older. Like, she spent almost $20,000, maybe more on this party.
Easy.
But having this party inspired my mom, because after she had this party, you know what she said? If I could throw this party, I could buy a house. And 2, one of her coworkers, I love this coworker because of her. She's a big reason why we got out too. I'm going to call her S. She told my mom, she just made a comment like, Mexican people don't own homes. My mom was like, what? And that like triggered her, like, let me prove you wrong. And I had my party when I was 15. And by the time I was 17, we were moving into our new house that we live in today that she bought with my brother. So she was like, if I could throw this expensive party, I could buy a house. And she did it. She did it. That's why I'm just like, my mom she sets a goal It's there. Like, you need to watch out. If she's set on something, she's going to do it. Like, she was like, I'm getting my broker's license. It took her like 7 tries. She got it. She has her own company now. Like, she gets it done. And I love that. It's a lot to live up to, honestly. It's a little hard for me to, how am I supposed to surpass that? But I can. I'm like, I already did by not being and staying with any of the guys that I was with or having a baby with any of them. I did surpass that, you know. That's one thing that I can say, because when I was young, I hate saying this, but I always saw my mom as very weak because she would just stay with him, you know, and I didn't like that. And I always said, I'm never going to let a man hit me. A man's never hit me, but I have been emotionally abused by a man a lot, by all my relationships, you know. There's, you know, people know who to pick. And I don't know what I bring out, but I'm doing what I can to stop that, because I would love to be in a relationship and have a family, but I also don't want to have a kid with the wrong guy. If I'm going to have a kid with someone, I want to make sure they're not going to be a man like my father. I don't want to give another child I don't want them to ever feel unloved, unwanted, like something's wrong with them. Like, because too, my whole life, I always heard, I don't think I finished the story of the garage when they were young, actually, when I was born. When I was born, they lived in this tiny garage. And then everybody was so excited for me to be born because I was the 14th grandchild, you know. And my grandpa was excited because, too, I was almost born on my grandpa's birthday.
Okay.
So he had 2 granddaughters that were almost born on his birthday. I was born 2 days before. Okay. And then the other one was literally born like 2 minutes after midnight.
Oh, my gosh.
So it was almost his birthday. So he always had this extra little love for the both of us, you know. So everybody came down to visit. And they lived in this teeny tiny garage. People were sleeping in cars. They shoved in the garage. And my dad the whole night was like, oh, put on her dancing shoes and give me my daughter. So the whole night, everybody was like passing me around. I've heard that story my whole life. And then I'm just like, that's a great story. That's not the man that raised me. That is not the man who raised me. Your dad is supposed to show you how a man loves, how he protects, how, you know. And he never showed me that. He didn't. You know, and even my brother too, just because he didn't see that. My brother was never the man he is today back then. You know, my brother's always been caring and compassionate, but he was very selfish when he was young. You know, there would be times where my mom would ask him for money for food because my dad stole $300 out of her. And it was always $300, always. And I'm like, so I don't know how much he was getting of his crap with that, but it was always like $300. That was his magic solution too. That was another thing, how you asked about work. My dad would always come to my mom with these great ideas that are going to make all this money. And my mom is very easy to convince. And I learned that because of him. And he would just convince her like, oh, give me all this money and I'm going to make us money. And so she would. And then, because she always had hope, like, okay, if he just gets a job, you know, that's what I always heard her say. If he just works, it's fine. And for me, I'm like, that's the bare minimum. Like, you have children with this man. He's supposed to work. That shouldn't be if he just has this, we'll be okay. You know, and that's what I always thought. I'm like, that's not right. And so I always was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And then I remember I was dating this one guy, and this guy was exactly like my dad. And my mom hated this guy so much. And at this time in my life, this was after they were divorced and everything. It was a couple years after. I was actually on speaking terms with my dad. We were actually in a good place, and he was picking me up from work and stuff like that. He was actually working at that time too. He was working as like a maintenance guy for a building. And so I was able to go to him for money. And I'll never forget this time I went to him for money, and he looks at me and he's like giving me the money. And I was like, okay, thank you. And then he's like, just don't give any to him. And he's like, you know, pointing at my car. And then I look over and I'm like, why? Why? And he's like, no, just don't give any to him. I was like, why? I was like, you don't like him? Because in that moment, that's when I realized, I'm like, this man's a lot like my father. And I was like, you don't like him? I was like, why don't you like him? I'm like, he's just like you. I'm like, don't you like that for me? And that was the first time in my life that I saw my dad kind of be like, what the fuck have I got done in his face? Because I just drove off with this guy, you know? And I will admit, I probably stayed with that guy longer just because of that, because I saw that. And, you know, thankfully, I snapped out of it. I had gotten a positive pregnancy test. The only time in my life was with that man. And I'm very grateful that it was a false positive, that I didn't have to make any tough decisions. And that's what woke me up, that I was like, no. And then there was another time with him that we were arguing. And for some reason, no one was at home. So it was just me and him in my house. And we were having a fight. And then I remember I took off to go get him something after our fight. And then I'm driving, and then I pulled over and I was like, I'm my fucking mother right now. I was like, how did this happen to me? I was like, he's not hitting me. I was like, but how the fuck did I end up in this car after an argument, just how she would, to go get him something after he just did something? And I just remember I got in the car, and then I don't remember, I got whatever, and then I came back, and then he didn't have a car either. So I somehow tricked him to get in my car, and I left him at home, and I went back home after that. And then that's when I started realizing, I was like, I'm my mom right now. I was like, in this relationship. I was like, and that's what I didn't want. I never wanted to be her. And not in that aspect, at least, not relationship wise. Because everything else, she's a fucking incredible woman. I'm just like, fuck, she's been an amazing example for me, except in that aspect of relationships, you know? Because I've said this to her directly. I was like, you taught me that love is obedience. That's what you taught me. I'm like, my dad taught me that love is control. And then even one of my aunts, when I would go stay over the summers, she would take me with her to go spy on her boyfriends all day with binoculars and everything. Like, why are you? I would never do that. I never did that with any kids that I took care of. I wouldn't take them with me, buy them junk food, and make them sit in a car while I was watching. And sometimes she would even send me inside to go say something to him. Those were my examples of love. And I'm just like, I get it now. Why I get it. You know, I see where I've been wrong. And, you know, because it's not all them, it's me. It's what I'm accepting, what I'm doing, what I'm attracting, and letting, you know, instead of saying something when something bugs me, I'm just letting it go, because that's my problem. I'm learning how to say things when they bother me in the moment, so it doesn't come back later and it seems like I'm attacking you. Because my anger, that's one thing I'm working on, that I have a very fast switch. I get triggered so easily. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, that's from your dad. That's from your dad. But as I'm getting older, I'm learning that even on my mom's side, the women have very strong personalities and attitudes. And I'm like, it's not all my dad. I have it from both sides. I'm fighting a lot here of what I need to resist, you know? It's hard to fight all these things inside, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care that I'm the single spinster aunt in the family. I'm going to wear that with pride. I'm over trying to fit in and make people put me in a box, because I've always just wanted to be what my dad wanted. I always felt like a little soldier, like, have to be like this, and you need to do this, and you need to have this and this. And it was just so frustrating, because I felt like I would try so hard just to get some kind of validation for him, and it would never come. And then now as an adult, when I see him, you know, in present day, I see the pain in his eyes. And there was one time where he did apologize, but it was such a dry apology. And then my oldest nephew was standing right there too, that I'm like, no, and I remember I was like, Dad, he's all, no, seriously, like, I'm just sorry for everything. And I'm looking at my nephew and I'm just like, we can talk about it later. I was like, but I appreciate what you're trying to do. I'm like, thank you. I'm like, but I would like to talk about it more, you know? And he was like, yeah, we can. And he just gave me a hug and never mentioned it again. Yeah. Never. But I see it when I see him. Like, I just saw him on Christmas. I went to go leave him some food. And I feel it in his energy, you know, because it breaks my heart that I don't miss him. It breaks my heart. I hate that. I really hate that I don't miss my dad. I really don't. My whole life, all my birthday wishes, all my prayers were for something bad to happen to my dad so he could just leave. So I could have peace, quiet. Because when he was around, there was always something wrong, screaming, yelling, breaking. He would always throw things. And I noticed that's my first instinct too when I get frustrated.
I don't feel like it's sad that you don't miss him because I feel like you can have a life where you forgive and still are aware that you don't want that energy in your life.
Yeah.
I don't, it's like it might be sad in the sense when you look at
From the outside.
from the facts of like, yeah, it's my dad, but just because he's your blood doesn't mean that.
Yeah. And that's where I struggle a lot too,
Yeah.
because my dad's side of the family, especially, they don't talk about it.
Mhm.
They don't talk about anything. They don't talk about my dad. They don't talk about the other two brothers because all three boys became abusers. It wasn't just my dad. Like, I'm like, there's lots of stories. My cousins have their own stories of their moms, and even one of my aunts, I saw her be abusive, not just towards her children, but, why are you stalking your husbands? Like, you know what I mean? It's just a lot to kind of digest and really understand, because I've always just thought, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why doesn't anybody want to love me? Why does it? And now I'm discovering why, because I mold myself to what they want or like, and then they don't like me anymore because I'm not the person that they first met. Because everybody that meets me, everybody always tells me, oh, you're so strong and this and that. But people that truly, truly know me know that I can make myself very small for other people. Like my cousin Christina, she's my god sister, actually. I'm actually the godmother to her son too. Mm-hmm. And she lives with me. She's actually my tattoo artist as well. She's just, I don't know what my life would be without her. And that's her godfather too. And I remember one time she was with me, actually, when he worked at that building. And this was what made me stop talking to my dad for a few years. We went to go give him something. I forgot. I used to go with him all the time, meet him randomly, give him food, just little stuff. And I'll never forget, he came to me and I just saw him different. I know when my dad's on something. I know, like, I could tell. And the way he was walking, I was like, something just triggered. And then my cousin kind of noticed, like, are you okay? And then I was like, I don't like how he's walking over here. And then he comes and I give him whatever. And I just feel his energy and I could see it in his eyes. I was like, the devil's in him right now. It's like, and then he's asking about my mom. He's like, oh, I need to talk to your mom. And at this time I was like 22, 23. So I was like, for what? And he's like, I just need to talk to your mom. I was like, for what? And he's like, I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to your mom. I was like, the only thing you and my mother need to discuss is my brother and I'm right here. And my brother is an adult as well. So what do you want? And he was just like, I could tell he wanted to let it come out. But now that I'm older, he knows that I'll fight back with him, and I feel like after that one time he hit me, he never wanted to do it again because he would yell at me and stuff and throw things at me, but he would never get near me or break my things. That was his go-to, so he wouldn't hit me, because I would find my stuff broken sometimes when I'd come home from school. Because I don't know what I did wrong, but I did something wrong, and that was part of my punishment. Like, he would pick things, he would scratch my CDs, like, because that was my only escape when I was young, was my stereo and my music. And like Christina Aguilera's Stripped album, that saved me so much when I was young, because she actually has a song on that album that's called I'm Okay. And it talks about her experience seeing her parents fighting. And I remember hearing that song, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm not the only one. I was like, and that song I just played on repeat, because that's what she said. She's like, I'm okay in the song. Like, that's all she keeps repeating. So that was one of my go-to songs. Like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm okay. Like, if she's happy, And okay, like I always looked at Christina Aguilera as like, okay, I'm like, her family was able to make it out. I was like, we have some hope, something, and I know it's just a song, but artists make music for a reason. Like even Pink, she had this song called Family Portrait. And I felt that because there's this one photo that I love that my dad didn't ruin, because my dad, that was his go-to when he was mad, he'd ruin things. He ruined all these photos of my mom, of my dad, of them together. And I remember my mom yelling at him when he was doing it. She's like, those are for them. Like, those are their photos. And he didn't give a fuck. He got a hole puncher and he hole punched his face out of all the photos and put them back. Like, I don't have a lot of pictures, but I do have that one family portrait of us. And it's probably my favorite portrait of us. And that song from Pink, Family Portrait, always comes out in my head too, because she says in the song, she's like, in that portrait, we look so happy. She's like, but that wasn't the reality. So like those two songs just gave me some kind of strength to be like, you're not alone, because none of my immediate friends had this at home. None of them did, so I always felt like shameful, and my parents smoked a lot of cigarettes too. So I used to come to school smelling like smoke all the time. And if it wasn't for Monica, I truly don't know how I would have gotten through like my childhood, because she was probably the only one that understood. It's just she was going through stuff with her mom. I didn't get that. Her dad was absent. And for me, I used to always low-key be a little jealous of that, because it's like, I feel like I would rather miss him than had the experience I had with him.
Yeah.
And there's times where I always wonder, I'm just like, what if we did leave? Would that have been better, us being on the run? Like, I don't know. I'll never know. Truthfully, I'll never know if that would have been a better alternative. But, it just wasn't part of our story. And I'm grateful it wasn't, because if that was the route we took, who knows if I'd be sitting here today, right now.
Yeah.
And, and just as we got older, like when we moved to the house, what was that, like 16, 17? I was like 16, 17-ish, or I think I had just turned 17 because we moved in around my brother's birthday, and my birthday is right before my brother's. We're both on the 10th. Like, so it's my birthday the first month, and then he's the next one. So I remember we threw his 21st birthday, the first weekend we lived in that house with no furniture. It was just empty house, freshly painted. And I just remember my dad, somebody gifted us this like glass chess set with shots. And my dad was walking around with cupcake holders full of shots to all my brother's friends, just like, happy birthday. Because we were all on a high that, we have this house, and, because it was awesome, and it kind of was a similar setup to the house that my grandpa built in Mexico. It was just like opposite, like the rooms at the house in Mexico were on your left side, and then at our house they're on the right side. So that was the first thing we noticed. So because we saw so many houses, oh my God, we saw so many houses, and that house. The moment we saw the church that was on the corner of that house, we knew it was our house, because the church that was on the corner was the church where I did my quinceañera.
Okay.
So it just was meant to be.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we got there, we're like, why does it look so familiar over here? And then my brother was like, hey. And then we're like, oh my God, that was where it was. And yeah, and it's been a beautiful home. And I'm glad that there's only a little bit of bad memories there, because my dad only lived there for like the first 2 years.
Okay.
So once we were living in the house, things were okay for a little while, probably for like the first year. But then things just started getting bad, like really bad. And I remember my mom had a Christmas party one time, and she left me alone with my dad at home. And that weekend, my dad was just like on one. He wouldn't leave me alone. He just kept bugging me. Like I couldn't even be in my room with my dog alone. And my dad used to abuse my dog. I don't know what he would do when I wasn't there, but I did see him many, many times throw him like a rag doll. Like my poor dog. Like it just breaks my heart, And then now my puppy's like 16 years old, and he's like about to leave me, and I'm just like, it's hard, I felt like I let him down, my dog, because I let him be around that. And I remember I was so upset. I was just I was scared of how I was going to react if I would go at my dad and something bad would happen. That's where I was starting to be like, I'm scared I'm going to do something to him because I can't take this anymore. Like I can't. I was fantasizing how to kill him. Like back then, the only true crime show there was like Snapped. And we used to watch that show all the time. And I remember my dad used to be like, "Oh, are you guys getting ideas?" Like he used to say shit like that to us. And he would make fun of us. Like my mom and I, we love to watch the same movies over and over. Like we really do. We're just creatures of habit that way. And my dad used to always come in, "Oh, the one we've never seen before." Like he was my first bully, truthfully. He really was. Like he used to always just pick on us for the stupidest little things. And I just remember that weekend, he was kind of just being like that with me the whole time. And just, I couldn't deal with it. And I called my mom and I was like, "You guys need to get home now. Like, I can't." And they had a really good time. This Christmas party, I think, was on a boat or something. I don't know. And they had a lot of fun. And I just remember I texted my brother and I was like, "You guys really need to come home. Like, I can't." I was like, "You have to come home." And so they came home. And that was the first time my brother ever saw my dad hit my mom. And I remember they were all arguing and stuff. And then my dad hits my mom. And I'm standing there. And my brother, he's just like freaking out. And he's looking at me. And I'm just standing there like, "What?" And he's like, "What? What? What do you mean, what? Like, didn't you just?" I was like, "Yeah, that's your dad." Like, because I was to the point where I was over it. I was so over it with him, with my brother, that he lived in this bubble of, just nothing wrong, nothing's happening. But I was just so sick of it. I couldn't take it anymore. So I remember his face. He's just like, "I can't believe this." And my dad's just like, "She deserves it. She deserves it." And I just remember going to my room and just staying in my room. And my brother just being so baffled, like, "I can't believe he did it. I can't believe he hit her." And I know he probably heard stuff when we were young, because I honestly, truly believe that's also another reason why we would sleep with the TV on. Because I remember one time we were young, and because before we used to share a room when we were young. We used to share a room. And I remember they were fighting one time, and I just remember my brother closing the door, turning on, I think it was like MTV, where they'd have music videos all night. So he turned it on and he put it kind of loud. And I remember Alicia Keys, one of her songs came on. So anytime they would fight, I would sing that song in my head just so I wouldn't, to tune it out a little bit. So it was like music was the one way that I kind of escaped a little bit, to really let stuff out. And I don't know why all the music I was finding was like kind of similar to what I was going through. Then I was just like, okay, I'm like this. I'm grateful I found those songs at those times, because I needed it. I really needed it, because it made me realize like celebrities are just people too. They go through shit too. So it was nice hearing their personal perspectives of their life. And I'm just like, okay, I can be okay, and then watching all these Snap shows and being like, there's no way that I could do this and still have a life after, because I was to that point, and so was my mom. Like we were both trying to find ways to kill him, like truthfully, because we just couldn't take it anymore. And then it was so hard because around this time, my brother is finally starting to kind of realize what's going on. And my brother was in such a like bubble of his own life that he was never home. Like I said, he was always out with friends and just not there. And my dad would just let him go because that was his free reign time to, cause his havoc and crap. And so as things are getting worse at home, my mom, her coworker S, told on her at work. And my mom was pissed. I remember she came home super mad. She's all, "She told HR, they put me in the office and they gave me all this stuff." And that's where my mom got the information for the House of Ruth. It's a very popular domestic violence organization. And without that organization, I don't think we'd be here, because they helped her. She told me the first time she called, she was like, "Oh, my friend." And the lady's like, "Well, have your friend call us back when she's ready." And she hung up, because I'm sure they say that a lot, because domestic violence is is so shameful. You know, even when I was telling some people that I was coming here to talk about this, they're like, oh, well, your brother's kids are going to hear this. I'm like, and this is their history. Like, their dad may not be the dad he is if he didn't have that in his life. They may not even exist if my brother didn't discover this about his dad, because his wife, her father, he's not an abuser, but he does have his own struggles that are kind of similar to my dad. And that's where I've learned that some people just don't want to be parents, and some people don't let anything stop them, because her dad, regardless of his struggles, he shows up for her, you know? And that's why I'm just like, my dad just doesn't want to try, because he is always there for his daughter and my nieces and nephews, his grandkids. My dad, he doesn't show up. You know, it's like pulling teeth to get him to go to spend time with my brother and his grandkids. And it's like, my mom, you don't got to ask her twice. She's like, I'll babysit. Like, I'll be there. Like, because my brother will ask us together, oh, can you guys come babysit? Because 5 kids is a lot. You know, especially my mom, she's like used to having kids all the time. Me, I'm always trailing around with like 3-4 kids with me, you know? So that's nothing to me. And her and my niece will be like goofing off together. And I'm just like, hey, both of you stop. Like, you know, and I love it. It's beautiful. But it's just like, I don't want to have shame about this, because one day they need to know this. They need to learn this about their life and where they come from. And I'm not trying to demonize my dad coming on here. I'm just telling my experience of how I grew up. And this is the result of his actions. Like, if I could control it, I would have had a dad who wasn't like that, you know? Because of course I would want my parents to still be together and we be a family. But if that means my mom doesn't get the partner she has today, then no. I love her boyfriend, Dre. He's amazing. And he treats me like his own kid, you know? Like, he's there for me when I need it. And I've honestly been very, very blessed since my dad has gone out of my life. All the jobs I've gotten, I have male authority figures. And so at first it's struggle, you know, because I worked for this company that was a husband and wife. It was a solar company. Even to this day, I still talk to them and they're amazing. And the husband, he just had a very loud voice. So I used to get very triggered at first, like with yelling, especially with the man, until I learned that's just how he speaks. You know, some people are just naturally loud. And what was so funny is his wife talked really loud. Like, you can barely hear her sometimes. I'm just like, how does this work with y'all? You know, but because of them, that taught me that, like, not everybody that's talking loudly is trying to be mean, you know? So I'm grateful that I got to be around them, because it helped me kind of get that out of my mind. Because anytime I heard a man speaking loudly, I just... you know, I tensed up. So I'm very grateful that I met them, because, and I always thought he kind of didn't really like me, but around 2020, right before COVID started, actually, the manager of that company, he had passed away, and I loved that manager. He was awesome. He took care of me a lot too. I remember one time my car battery broke, and I was sitting in my car and I was like crying, and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, you know, your car, you're like, why? Like, you know. And I remember Aaron, that's the manager that passed, he came up to me and he's all, give me your keys, go inside. And he and one of the other associates went and bought me a battery, didn't charge me. And that's when I was like, so this is what it's like to have men take care of you. Like, okay. You know, I'm like, it's okay for a man to speak loudly at you, and it's not a bad thing, you know? So, and then I worked for this plumber. And this plumber, he made me grow up. And I'm so grateful for him, because at that time, that was around the time where I was kind of talking with my dad. And my dad used to pick me up from work, and my mom used to drop me off. And this was like my first big girl job. Like, I was a receptionist for this plumber. He was like, I pay you enough so you can afford a car. You know, because that was my first job where I started making like $15 an hour. And I was only like 19. So yeah, I could afford a car. I didn't have any bills. I didn't have credit cards yet, you know? So what he started doing was, the last hour of my shift, He's like, I'm still going to pay you. But you and her, because I had another lady that worked there that actually used to work with my mom. She was like, you guys are going to go out driving for the next hour. And she was like, yeah, let's go. So they used to take me driving my last hour of work probably for like a month. And then I got my license and I bought my little car, my little white car. Oh, I love that car. I had to get rid of it though, because of course the first car you buy is always falling apart.
Yeah.
Oh my, that I had so many fun memories in that car because I did not get my license until I was 21. I took a long time to get my license because my mom would take me everywhere. Like once my dad wasn't around, she would wake up early all the time. And like I said earlier, I started drinking at 13. So once I graduated high school, and after this, I'll start getting into that night. And once I graduated high school, I started hanging out with friends and drinking all the time because it was just the aftermath of everything. I was just trying to numb the pain of everything that had happened to me in those 2 years. So I was drinking a lot, like from 21 to about, like 25-ish. I was just drinking to black out almost every day. But I'd still get up and go to work. No one knew I was a functioning alcoholic. Because I still consider myself an alcoholic now. It's just now I can have 2 drinks and be good.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, because I have the ability to be an alcoholic if I let myself. Because my brother, he unfortunately has that same issue. He started drinking really young as well. And for him, it's different. Me, I can have 1 drink, right, and be chill. My brother can't. So I can't have a beer around him. I can't just offer him a beer because he wants 5 and more. And, and I love him and I'm not trying to ruin his progress, because my dad used to make me hide his alcohol under my legs when we would be driving. Like my dad would drink and drive with me and all of us, so I'm just like, and that's why to this day, when I have kids with me, I don't drink.
Yeah.
Like if I have my niece and my godson with me, because I'll take them everywhere with me, because those are the only 2 kids that live with me now. So if my cousin's working, like her son, if he's not with her or his dad, he's with me. Like I have a car seat in my car for him. Because if he's just like, Nina, I want to go with you. Okay, let's go. You can come with me. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
He's my extra accessory. I always tell her, I'm like, I love my friendship bracelet. He's so perfect. Like, I love that kid. That's why for me too, I don't feel like I need to be a mom. I already am a mom. And I love the kind of mom I am because I don't need to make the tough decisions. I don't need to discipline. Sometimes I do help her when he's not listening. But other than that, because my godson's very like, hold on, you're not listening to me. Like he wants to plead his case. And me, I'm like, no. Listen to your mom, or I'll be like, no, let me do this. And, so I help out whenever I can because it's hard raising kids. But I do my best to be a good example for them because I don't want them to think drinking and driving is okay. I don't want them to think that, even my niece one time, she was like, Thea, you don't date, you don't go out. And I'm like, honey, you don't know my life. I'm like, I've gone out and done stuff. I just don't tell you. I'm not going to bring every guy I know or meet to meet you. Like, I'm that one in the family that's like, oh, Vicky's bringing a boyfriend? Who is he? And everybody interrogates this man. Like, my family has only met the guy that was like my dad. And then they met, I had a boyfriend around my quinceañera time too. I almost forgot about him. So they've met maybe 3 of my boyfriends and I'm 32 years old. So when I finally bring someone around, it's a big deal. Like I don't just bring anybody to meet my family because I just don't, because everybody gets so with me like, oh, she's dating someone or because I feel like everyone's just like, oh, when is she going to get married and have kids? And I'm just like, I truly don't know if that's even what I want if I meet the right person. Like, because I'm getting to a stage in my life where I'm kind of like, I kind of just want to experience the world. And, if I want to feel like I want to be a mom, I have my kids that I could grab, and do it. Because even when I told my godson, I'm like, I'm going on an airplane tomorrow. He was like, why? I want to come with you. I'm like, you can't come with me, but it's like, it's beautiful that I have that. So I'm like, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, even though people tell me all the time, it's not yours. I'm like, I get all that, but you don't get what I get out of this. And raising the kids I have. I'm grateful to my cousin and her older sister for giving me the opportunity to be in their kids' lives and be a positive influence for them. I don't take that for granted, and I don't, everyone has their own struggles, and all I'm trying to do is just be an extra person to love your kid if, you're handling your own, you know what I mean? Because we're all people. But, well, I want to get into when we actually left my dad. My mom left my dad when I was 17. I was in my junior year of high school. And at that time, I had a boyfriend. We'll call him Carrie. He used to do a lot of really good Jim Carrey impressions. A little tidbit with that relationship is probably the most positive relationship I ever had. And I'm grateful. I feel like I've been chasing that energy and relationship my whole life again, because he grew up with, a very stable home. I always tell people, like, we can't, our lives are different movies. Mine was the Lifetime movie if I was gonna make it out alive, and his was like the dude at the beginning of Bring It On that gets to go to college and just live his life. It was I always told him, like, we come from very different worlds. Like, we met in Spanish class, actually, in like our sophomore year. And so by junior year, we had already been dating for like over a year. So he would come to my house a lot and stuff like that. And as we started dating more, I started to tell him a little bit about my parents and what's going on. And, he didn't understand that. He did have a brother who struggled with addiction, and he used to talk so bad about him, like just very negative. And that's when I was starting to realize, I'm like, this relationship is not going to end up working out long term, because he just doesn't see the world the way I do. His world is so, his parents just gave him a car. I had to work to have a cell phone. Like, my parents just didn't give me everything. Everything I had to work for. And I'm grateful for that. And also at this time of my life, my cousin Cassie was living with us. And she came to live with us because my grandma my mom's mom, my grandma Alba, she had a heart attack, and she never woke up from her heart attack. So she was in the ICU, and like she was hooked up on machines and stuff for like a good month. And that whole month, we were going to the hospital every single day. Every single day. The moment I got off of school, my mom got off of work, we went straight to the hospital. Like, even the security guards knew us. Like, we had blankets in the waiting rooms, because when you're Hispanic and someone's sick, they don't leave you alone. Someone is there 24/7. Somebody's always there. And that's one thing I do like about our culture. They're very, they don't, when someone is sick, everyone does band together and help, and we don't leave each other when things get hard, which I do love. And so my mom, around this time, she was finally starting to get fed up. And, her job already knew what was going on. And by this time, I'm pretty sure she had already called the House of Ruth again as herself, not calling for a friend. And she actually started to get information little by little. And like anybody in domestic violence knows, it's scary. It's scary to see everything, because then they tell you, you got to pack a bag. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it gets a little intimidating, And then after a month, we took my grandma home, and she died in my aunt's house. And after she died, and I remember actually when my grandma was in the hospital, my dad would be harassing her the whole time, like calling her and calling her. Because my dad, he wouldn't just call you one time. He would call until you answer the phone. So he would call hundreds of times. It was insane. Like, he would hang up and just press it. So I just remember that would happen a lot while my mom's over here upset. Her mom's dying. Like, he's not even letting her process what's going on. And they had some kind of fight a little after. And she calls my Aunt Xiomara and is like, I'm leaving him. I'm done. Like, we are doing this. And she's like, really? Finally? Like, this is real? Like, so we started getting everything together. And then my mom was like, okay, we're just going to wait for your birthday. And then we'll wait for your brother's. And then we'll wait for Father's Day. Because it was getting too real, But then they had another fight, and she was just like, the line crossed, it was done. So we finally really made the decision. So we knew if she was going to have this conversation with him, she couldn't do it alone. So we all had to be home, and we needed to have an excuse to leave the house. So I made sure Carrie was at the house as well, so we could have a reason for us to leave. And so we're in the room. I'm in the room with my boyfriend. My cousin's in the living room. My cousin Cassie's in the living room. My mom is in the back room talking with my dad, like, I want a divorce in this. And during this conversation, he proceeds to tell her, the only way I'm leaving this house is if I'm dead and you are too. And the kids. He's like, I'm going to kill the kids, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill myself. He's like, that's the only way we're walking out of this house in body bags. That's it. And while they're having this conversation in that room, my brother is outside. Because my brother is still in La La Land at this point, thinking that they're going to have this conversation, and my dad's just going to be like, okay, you can leave me, and I'll just get in this car, and our son's going to drive me 3 hours to my mother's house. I knew that wasn't going to happen, but my brother was like, no, that's what's happening. I'm going to take him to grandma's after this, because my grandma, his mom was still alive at this point. And at this point, his dad was the only one that had passed. And so I'm in the room, and I'm just nervous as hell, because I know what's happening in that back room. I know, and we don't know what he has in there. What we discovered later was nuts, but they're having this conversation, and I just remember my mom comes inside, and she's like, okay, get everything, because we had kind of little bags kind of prepped and stuff, and we had to keep hiding it and moving it different places because my dad was always home. So when we come to find out later, he was just going through all of our stuff. So I was always kind of moving my stuff around, because I feel like a part of me knew he was kind of violating my privacy. It was just hard to prove. And two, at that time, I was sharing a room with my cousin Cassie. So it was kind of like, oh, maybe it was just her, like, because we're both girls, I never had a sister, so I didn't know what it was like sharing a room with the girls. So I just, anytime something was off or something, I just put it off as like, oh, she just put it there or something. And so me and Carrie are in my room, my cousin Cassie's in the living room, and my mom comes inside, and she's like, okay, pack some stuff, and, let's start getting ready to go. And then she comes to me, she's like, okay, we have to take Carrie home soon. So we're like, oh, I was like, okay, so like, this is it. And then my cousin, my mom, she ends up going back outside for something. And then my cousin hears them arguing outside. So she goes outside, and she sees my dad pinning my mom against the car. And she's just like, hey, like, are you guys okay? And he's like, oh, no, we're fine. Like, go inside. And then, because at first she wasn't going to come with us to drop him off, because she didn't always come with us. She would come randomly to drop him off, because he didn't live too far. It was probably like 25 minutes away. And so she's in the car, or no, she randomly decides, like, I'm going to go with you guys. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine, And then I go outside for something, and I see my dad just outside, just kind of pacing. And I look at him, and he looks so evil. Like, I was terrified in that moment. I was like, this is it. Like, I really felt like I was going to die that day. Like, something was going to happen. If it wasn't me, it was my mom, something. And I just felt this evil radiating around him. Like, not even just looking, it was just, I saw the devil that day. That's how I see when he would get like that. And so I'm walking out there, and he didn't say anything to me. He's just mad dogging me with this look of just anger. And the biggest reason too why my mom finally decided to leave my dad was because when I turned 18, I told her, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, you have to leave him. I'm like, because if not, I'm going to leave. And she's like, where are you going to go? I'm like, I'd rather be a homeless stripper on the corner than live in this house with him. Like, you need to do something. And that was a big gamble for me, because kids that are from domestic violence, your parents don't always choose you. They'll choose them. So I took a big gamble there on saying that to my mom, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was very grateful that she chose me. Very grateful, because I've heard so many other stories where they choose them, and then those women are not here today, you know? So I'm grateful she chose me. And so we all get in the car, and all we had, because we were just so scatterbrained, we had our dogs, we had Simba and Bella, Cassie, my mom, and Carrie, and a full tank of gas. That's all we had. We didn't take any money. We didn't take and my mom had her cell phone. That was it. That was all we had in the car. And we're driving to drop him off. He kind of knew, you know, so none of us were really talking. And the whole time, my dad's blowing up my mom's phone the entire time. From the moment we leave, he's just calling her and calling her and calling her. And my cousin is sitting in the front with my mom seeing it, and she's just seeing, and you could tell that my mom is just so upset and anxious, and it's understandable. She just got threatened, and she knew in her heart that he meant it this time, because that was his favorite threat to tell her all the time. I'm gonna kill the kids and kill you and myself. Always. He would always threaten us. And that's why part of me would always get so mad with my brother, because I'm just like, he wanted to kill you too. Like, it wasn't just me. So we drop him off. And once my boyfriend gets in the house, we're in the car, and we kind of just like, we don't know what to do, you know, and the phone's ringing and he's expecting us home, and we're just kind of, we don't know what to do. So we're driving, and then my mom's starting to drive back. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then she calls her friend S, the one that had told HR about everything. And she's like, no, you need to call the police. Do not go home. Do not go home. And I just remember being like, let me out of the car right now. Like, no, because we were still kind of close to my boyfriend's house. And I was like, you know what? I'll just walk back to his house. You go die. I'm over this. And I think S heard me on the phone, because it was on like Bluetooth. And I just hear her, listen to your daughter and call the police. And then my cousin was like, yeah, we have to call the cops now. And I don't remember if we called and they told us to go to the police station, or if we just went to the police station, because I just remember being at the police station and there was a cop that met us there, and then he started taking my mom's statement. And I remember my dog, Simba, he would not leave my mom. He became her dog for like the next 2 years. He left me and he was just with her. And my dog, he didn't like males, as you can see, because my dad, and, you know, but he wasn't even barking at the cop, nothing. He was just next to my mom. Like, I'm not leaving her. And the cop, I'll never forget this guy. He kind of reminded me like a tall Vin Diesel. He was bald, kind of buff, or maybe it was just his uniform. I don't know. But I remember him being buff, and he was a very sweet guy. I remember I talked to him later at my dad's sentencing hearing. But and at the time we also had this black and white pit bull. His name was Mostro, and he was the best pit bull ever. And my dad, unfortunately, used to abuse him as well. But he was such a good dog. He was so loyal to my mom. Like, that was her dog. Like, we didn't even need a leash for that dog. And I just remember my mom being like, don't let anything happen to my dog, like telling the cop. Because this whole time while she's doing the police report, my dad's still calling my mom. And me, I'm like freaking out, because that police station we were at was maybe 5 minutes from our house. We were so close to our house. So in my head, I'm just like, oh my God, he's figuring it out. He's walking over here. Like, we're dead. Like, that's all that kept running through my mind, because I just saw how he looked, you know? So I'm like, he's capable of anything right now. Like, he really is. I've seen what he's capable of. Mm-hmm. So I know that it could get worse than that. And I'm just with my cousin. Like, we have her little dog. She's the cutest little teacup chihuahua. I loved Bella. And we were both just kind of hanging out. And my cousin she's a little confused, because she kind of knew what was going on. She had been living with us. But it was just such a confusing night, because my mom kept saying, oh, we're going to do it today. We're going to do it today. And never happened. And then it was real. Like, game time happened. And we were all just, oh shit, what am I going to do? And so we are there, and the cop is taking the report. And so he's finishing taking the report, and then he tells her, like, okay, well, you guys can't go home. And then we're like, well, where are we going to go? He's like, you guys can't go home, and you can't go anywhere that he may know. And as he's having this conversation, I call my brother, because we forgot everything. We didn't have food, we didn't have clothes, we didn't have money, we didn't have nothing. We just had the dogs and ourselves and a full tank of gas. That was it. So I'm calling my brother, and my brother tells me, he's like, Dad's in the shower. So I was like, okay, cool. My dad used to do marathons in the bathroom, as I stated earlier. His showers would take 4 hours. So I was like, okay, cool. I was like, Jack, go to my room. We have this, this, and this, and get some of the dog food because we don't know what's going to happen. So he's like, okay. So as he's in the process of getting everything I'm telling him, he calls me. He's out of the shower. And I'm like, get the fuck out of the house right now. And he's like, what? I was like, get out now. He's like, but I was like, I don't give a shit. Whatever you have, get out. I was like, he took a shower in 30 minutes. Get out. And he's just like, you're being dramatic. Because in this time, my brother's still very in denial of how serious this is. And I'm just like, I was like, listen to me, please. I was like, get out of the house. And he's like, okay, let me just get my cat. And Sonia, the cat, runs away from my brother, of course. So that was his baby. So he was like, she ran away. And I was like, we will get her later. Just whatever you have, get out of the house. I don't want you to be alone with him. Like, get out. And he leaves. Thankfully, he leaves just in time before my dad is even dressed or anything, you know? So my brother goes to a friend's house who's not too far. And unfortunately, he proceeds to start drinking while he's over there. So while we're at the police station, he's at his friend's house hanging out, getting a little tipsy. And so once the cop tells us, like, okay, you guys have to do this and that, whatever, I'm like, okay, we got to go meet Jack so we can get all of our stuff and get a game plan. Like, what's next? So we go meet my brother, and he's not coming out. And me and my cousin are just, oh my God, like, what? You know, I'm like, my dad knows where this friend lives. Like, we can't be here. Like, we need to go somewhere, you know? So, and then we were trying to call one of my mom's other friends. I'll call her my Aunt Barbie because she looks like a Barbie doll, legit, blonde hair, always in pink. Like, I love her. She's like my Italian auntie that I always say. And we were calling her because I was like, you know what? He knows her, but she's the only person that he may not know where she lives. And so we're calling and calling her, and she's not answering. And we're like, fuck, where do we go? We can't go to my aunt's house. And then I was like, Carrie's mom works for a hotel. I was like, fuck it, I'm calling him back. So I called him, and he's like, is everything okay? I was like, I need to talk to your mom. And he's like, why? I was like, I need to talk to your mom now. I was like, give her the phone, please. This is an emergency. And he would always get kind of weird with me talking with his parents. I don't know why, but he gives the phone to his mom because I don't think he ever told his parents, maybe, is what I'm thinking now about what was going on with my family. So I get the phone and I'm talking to her, and I was like, can you help us get a room tonight? I was like, and I told her everything. I was like, you know, we called the cops on my dad, blah, blah, blah. I was like, we can't go home. And so she's like, yeah, just give me a minute. So she makes some calls, and she got us a room for like $50 for us to go. And so I'm like, okay, we have a place to stay. Like, we're okay. Like, let's just get Jack and get the hell out of here. Because it was taking forever to get my brother because he started to party. And finally, as we're starting to get him out, I don't remember if it was my cousin or my mom who went to go get him, because I remember being in the car, and my brother swears the cop called him, but I remember getting the phone call. And I remember the cop being like, I have your father in custody. And then I was like, what? He's like, you guys are welcome to come home. And then I'm like, wait, just like that? Like, you know, it just felt so surreal to me. I'm like, he's gone? Like, it's just done? Like, what? And he's like, yeah, you guys are safe to go home. He's in custody, and we are going to book him tonight. So the original reason why they even was because since he threatened all of us, they charged him with like a terrorist attack or something like that. I don't remember clear. I'm like, I should have gotten the police report to have all the details, but that was the initial reason why he was able to go. So at the sentencing hearing, the cop came up to us, and then, you know, he just was like, you know, how are you? Like, and then I was like, can you tell me like what happened that night? Like when you showed up and everything. And so the cop tells me, he's like, yeah, he goes, so when I pulled up, we have like a security door and then our wooden door. My dad used to always have the wooden door open and be like at the security door, or our wooden door has like a little glass so you can kind of see through. And he said that when he pulled up, that at first he was just standing there with the wood door open. And then my dad noticed it was a cop and he closed the door. And then he was just kind of looking through the window. And that finally he went up to the door and he opened it and started talking to him. And then he noticed that my dad was wearing a bulletproof vest. And then as he proceeded to talk to him more, he also found a gun there. So if we were to have come home, we would have walked in to my dad sitting there, him wearing a bulletproof vest and a gun in his hand. What would we have done? Like, what would have happened if we walked through that door that night instead of sending the cop? We would have died. Like, that would have been it. He was literally just waiting for us to just walk in and that was it. And I just remember I'm standing there listening to this man say this to me, and I'm looking up, and, we're in the court, like, like the outside part of the courtroom, how it's like the court doors, and then there's that area. Well, of course, my dad's sister is there. And this sister, this aunt, she was always like the sweetest one, but messing with her brother brought out the evil side of my aunt. Like, she was so mean. And this is when I was very disappointed in my dad's side of the family because they demonized my mom. They were like putting it all on her, that it was her fault and this and that. And that's when I realize now, I'm like, you guys are just so used to this that it's just easier to blame my mom than make your brother take accountability for his actions and making it smaller. And I'm standing there listening to this cop, and I'm just seeing my aunt just mad at me and then she has the nerve to tell me, you don't know anything. And I'm like, I don't know anything? I'm like, I was there. Yeah. You weren't. You don't know anything. And that's when I proceeded to have issues with my dad's side of the family for a few years, because they just kept telling me, you're just a little girl. You don't know nothing. No sabes nada. Like, you no entiendes. You don't understand. Like, you don't get what it's like for married people. That's normal and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you were not there. I was like, he got arrested because he was going to kill us. I'm like, the only reason why he was actually able to get booked was because he had a gun that wasn't registered, because he had a bulletproof vest that he wasn't supposed to have. Because I don't know what the regulations are about owning a bulletproof vest and all that, but clearly the way he obtained it was not right. And two, I know my dad has had a gun before, because that's not the first time he's threatened my mom with a gun. He's done it before, even when we lived in the apartments, and that was when I was young. So he's always been this way. Even when they dated as young kids, she told me when she was pregnant with my brother, he hit her, So he's always been this way. It never just happened one day. It's who he is. And at that sentencing, he ended up getting, I think he was in jail for like a year, and then he was on probation for about 3-4 years. And then we had a restraining order against him for about 5 years, something like that. And we actually just found the restraining order the other day. I was looking at it, I was like, damn. And we even had my cousin Cassie on it because she was living with us. So we just wanted to make sure. And my brother wasn't on it, because this was the time in our life where we were a family divided. We were, because I was just with my mom. Like, it's me and my mom, because that's how it always felt. It was just us against him always. And that was the first time where I just felt so heartbroken that it wasn't us three against him. We were against him. And so my dad goes to jail. And I remember probably, I want to say that first week after he went to jail, a bunch of random people kept coming to the house at weird times. So we had to keep telling all these weird random people to let them know that Sylvester, and my dad, no longer lives there. And not his real name, by the way. And we just had to keep telling them, like, oh, Sly doesn't live here. Sly doesn't live here. Tell your friends. Because for like a good month, we were getting really odd characters showing up during the day, because they knew my mom. They knew like that my mom would come home at night, like after 5 o'clock. So a lot of times during the day, it was a little scary to be home that first month, because My dad had so many different types of drug addicts coming over all the time, you know? So, and luckily all that stopped probably by like the third month and we stopped getting visitors. And then my brother started to visit my dad in jail and he would come home pissed, just every time, blaming my mom. Like, it's your fault why he's there. It's your fault. And I'll never forget one of the times he came home so livid and just came in like arguing with my mom. And I stepped in and I was like, don't talk to her like that. And he's like, no, you don't get it. I was like, no, you don't get it. You weren't there. I was like, and she didn't. I was like, you think she deserves this? I was like, you can leave. And then he's like, this is my house. Because my mom bought the house with my brother because my dad couldn't help. He couldn't provide to the house. So it was his house. And he's like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I'll become a fucking stripper if it means you don't have to live here. You're not going to speak to my mom like that. And I just remember him looking at me like, because I was 18 years old saying this, I didn't give a fuck. I'm like, I was done watching people treat my mom that way. Mm-hmm. And then for my brother to start being like, hey, it's your fault. It's one thing seeing my aunts and stuff saying things like that to my mom. But my brother, boy, you have no idea what we both endured for you to go live your free, happy life and act like you didn't live in a domestic violence house when you did. Because he says it in his email. He's like, I was so oblivious. I had no idea what was going on. He's like, I was just focusing on myself and partying. But too, when you look at it, that was his way of not dealing with what was going on because he did subconsciously know. So I like to call this time in my life my hell years because not only did I almost get murdered by my dad, and potentially lose my mom and my cousin and my brother. So my dad was already in jail. About 6 months. It was about 6 months later, tragedy struck my family. My Aunt Xiomara, her oldest son, my cousin Alex, he was shot and killed. And so we were finally adjusting to a new normal, And then this happens and we're just broken, dealing with everything with my dad was a lot, kind of trying to settle, find myself, find my footing. And then this happens because around this time when my mom and finally left my dad, we were at my tia Xiomara's house almost every weekend because we were making up for all the time that we didn't go when my dad was there because the price we had to pay to visit her was not a fun one. Not for my mom. Not one I'd like to listen to. I hated going to her house, like I said earlier. And then my cousin dying was he was on my mom's side. I think we're 8 grandkids. Yeah, we're 8 grandkids. And he was the first one. He was the oldest one. And he was the best. Oh, sorry. Talking about him, I can never not cry. Because what's sad about his story is that he had to live in Mexico for a lot of his life because he had lost his visa. So he lived in Mexico with his dad, and then his mom moved out here. So, we lost a lot of time with him. So he had just moved out here, and he was finding his footing here in California, or in California where we live. And he had got a job, and he would work construction, right? And anytime we drive by one of the job sites, he'd be like, "Oh, I did that. That was me." Like, he just was beautiful energy that we miss a lot. There's I think 4 kids named after him. My brother's oldest son included. His middle name is after him, actually. It was kind of inspired by him. And then, so Alex passes away and we're all just kind of together all the time after that, And then we're all getting used to a new normal. I'm starting my senior year. And senior year is fun, It's supposed to be fun. But for me, the only good thing about my junior and senior years, I don't know how I managed to have straight A's and honor roll during this time with all this craziness. I just channeled a lot of my energy into school. And I give a lot of credit to my boyfriend at the time, Kerry. He would always what are you going to do with your life? Like, and the way he would approach it wasn't the greatest, but he did have a point, and I do give him a lot of credit to why I had honor roll my last 2 years. I never was on honor roll in my entire life, and I graduated with 2 pins. Like I felt very proud of myself. And so going into senior year and all that, we're adjusting to our life and dealing with the aftermath of losing my cousin. And then comes my grandma's anniversary, her mom, of her death. And then tragedy strikes again. This one's the hardest for me. And one of my aunts, one of my moms, she was one of my chosen family. She and my cousin, who's like my little sister, they died in a car accident together. So now that happened, and I'm just 18 years old dealing with all of that grief and surviving my father and losing her right before senior year, especially with the fact that she was at my house on Sunday and then she died Wednesday morning. And when she was at my house, we were planning her prom dress. And it was just so hard losing her. I was 17 at the time. She had died right before my birthday. So for a little while, I really hated my birthday because she died probably 3 weeks before my birthday, something like that. So I really did not like my birthday for a while because not only was it the anniversary of my grandma dying, it was also now the anniversary of my aunt and my cousin dying. And I remember at my cousin Alex's funeral, me and that cousin that passed, we had so much fun at his funeral. She had just gotten her license, and I remember we needed to go somewhere, and she's like, I need an adult to drive. And so my brother's like, I can go, I have my license. So we take him, and then we go to this like weird 5-way stop, and she's all freaking out. And my brother's like, just take that one. And there's like 3 roads. She doesn't know what to do. And so we had a lot of fun at that funeral. So it was just so heartbreaking that 6 months later, I was at her funeral. Like, losing her was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Because I never had a little sister. She was my little sister. Anything I had, she needed to have a better version. She needed it too. Like, and even to this day, I'd give anything to argue with her over something stupid. And she's actually related to Christina. That's actually her cousin. So that's what made me and Christina get really, really close later in our life because, we were like a little trio. Well, technically there was like 5 of us that were all kind of born within the same, from 6 to 8 months of each other. And me, Christina, me, and Delia were the last of those 5. So it was mainly us 3 a lot, but it was me and Delia more. And so losing her just wrecked me, completely wrecked me. I couldn't deal. But I managed to graduate. I managed to, something came over me that I was like, I just need to live my life as best I can because she can't, And then I remember graduation time came. And my dad was out of jail by the time my graduation came. And things at home between my mom and my brother and I had gotten a lot better. We had kind of started to heal and find our way to the 3 of us. My cousin Cassie had already moved out, so it was just us 3 for a while. And then we're adjusting to all this. They pass, and my graduation's here. And I just remember my brother, that's when he starts to date Judy, his future wife. And me and her became really close friends. And I'm just like, oh, I have an extra ticket. I don't even know how I managed to get so many tickets for my graduation, but I ended up getting a lot. And I remember I told my brother, I was like, this ticket's for Judy. And he's all, what about Dad? And I'm all, no. Right away, I was like, no. I was like, and besides, he can't be there. He can't be within 100 feet of me, even if I wanted him there, because our restraining order was intact. I was like, no. And he was like, no, but he deserves it. I was like, no. A man who I heard my whole life saying I was never going to graduate, and if I did, I was going to do it with a baby on my hip, does not deserve to be at my graduation. I was like, so no. I was like, either give it to Judy or I will find somebody else to give it to. Because if my father shows up, I am not speaking to you. And he took me seriously, thank God, and respected my opinion. And we invited Judy. And I love that we invited her, because the fact that now she's married to my brother, it makes those pictures so much more valuable, because it's even better. That was the start of their life together, pretty much, And me and her were so close in the very beginning, and we still are to this day. I commend her a lot. She's a stay-at-home mom. Her kids are amazing. I love the life that they have and the little world that they have. It's beautiful to watch. And so I'm grateful that she was there. And she was really there for me too during a lot of this, because about 2 weeks after graduation, Carrie broke up with me. He straight up was like, your life is too difficult for me. I was just like, okay, because I have a choice in that matter. I chose my dad to kill me. I chose for my family to start dying and dropping like flies. That was all my choice, whatever. And I took that breakup really hard. I did harass him a lot, and I never have apologized to him. And if that ever happens, I would, if I get the opportunity to see him again. I haven't reached out because I'm not trying to disrupt his life, because now we're 32. We were 18 years old. We were freaking kids. There's no need to reach out for that. But I do owe a lot to him in my life, because I don't think I'd be here if I wasn't dating him at that time. Because what would have been our reason to leave that night if he wasn't there? His presence alone could be the reason why, 6 kids were born. Like, my brother had 4, my cousin had 2. If something happened to either one of them that night, I would have never gotten to meet these beautiful little souls that were created years later, So I owe a lot of what I have now to him being in my life at that time. I really do, because I'll never know if I would have been alive if he wasn't there that day. Because I remember, I think a week after everything happened, not only were we getting weirdos coming, we got this one detective. I don't know his name. I wish I could find him, because he was so sweet. I remember he showed up and he was kind of like I just remember he was like in like slacks and like a gray button-up shirt. And he came to check on me and my mom. And then he's the one that made it real for me, that I was like, this was fucking scary. Like, this could have ended badly, because he came to check on us and he's all, well, I just came from seeing your dad. And I was like, oh. And then he's all, and I noticed you guys haven't gone to visit him. He's all, but I see your brother has. And we're like, yeah, we haven't. Because my mom was like, I'm done. I'm not going back. And then he looked at my mom. He's like, I really hope you don't. He's all, because a lot of us thought you and your daughter were dead after we read everything. And there was a woman who even called my mom later, like within those weeks, saying the same thing, being like, when your file came on my desk, I thought you and your daughter were dead. So hearing other people that didn't know us be like, you guys would have died. And then hearing my family saying, he wasn't going to do anything to you. You're dumb. He wouldn't go that far. It's just it's hard, especially when you're 18. And then being an adult now, it's just, you guys just don't want to admit that your brother makes bad decisions, Like, I'm not saying my dad's a bad person. He's a great man. I owe a lot of my good traits, like how everyone's like, I have the best of him already. I have his kid. I'm the best parts of my dad, and I'm doing everything I can to stay the best parts of him, because I don't want to ever cross that line, because I always feel like I could be capable of what he's been capable of, because he was my biggest influence. I feel like he was grooming me to be just like him, because why would you just expose me to everything? Why would you just show me all of that, when as a man, I would think I need to be a good man to be this kind of example to my kids, to my son, to my daughter. But all he told me as an example was, don't be a helpless woman. That's never left me, ever. I'm a little grateful for that because I'm not. I'm not. I do owe being a strong woman to both of my parents because my mom, I saw her be strong my whole life, dealing with that and raising kids and starting a new career and everything that life throws at you. And she's still on 2 feet and she's able to laugh is awesome. Like, even though I still live with her now, I don't care. I've had people be like, "You're still live with your mom, you're 32." I don't give a shit. I could still go in my mom's bed and cuddle her like if I was 5. And if you make fun of me, I'm sorry, you can't do that with your mom. Like, and I tell her all the time, we're just making up for all the time we lost.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting back right now. That's what we're doing. So when this opportunity came and it was so far from where we're from, I was like, "You want to come with me, Mom?" So that's why I'm glad she came and doing she's always like, "I want to travel. I want to travel." I'm happy this was a good kickstart to help realize that for her, that dream. And all I'm trying to do is just show my nieces that it's okay to be single. It's okay not to have kids. Find yourself, love yourself first before you love someone else, before you do anything, because you're the only one you have at the end of the day. And that's all I hope, that me coming on here can help my family understand me more too. Because even my niece told me one time I went to go visit and she was like, "Thea, can you tell me what happened?" And I was like, "Huh?" And she's like, "Yeah, with your dad. Like, I don't know." And I was like, "What do you know? Tell me." And I don't even remember what she told me because I was just like, that is so not right. I was like, "You want to know?" I told her everything I just told you guys. I was sitting on the floor in my aunt's house with everybody there. And I could tell my aunts were getting mad, but I was talking in English. So they couldn't fully understand everything I was saying. But they knew I was talking about my dad. I know they knew. But my niece, she was just like, "Yeah," like her face changed. She's all, "I didn't know that." Because my dad, he was the favorite uncle, or he is the favorite uncle. Everybody loves their Tío Sylvester. That's him. And that's what used to drive me nuts, because to the world he presented himself very different. And that's very common with narcissists and abusers. Image is very important to them. So that's why I learned, because when everything happened, nobody was believing us. Everybody, even my mom, they're like, "That's not true." My mom hadn't been enduring abuse from my dad. She met him when she was 15 years old. That's how long she's been with my dad. So that, and then grow herself, her environment also being domestic violence as a child, like how was she gonna know any different? And since she was so coddled and stuff, that she didn't even realize my dad was doing drugs until he was arrested. Like, because even that night we had gone back home before we went to the hotel, and I couldn't stay there. Like, we didn't have to stay at the hotel that night, but I'm so grateful that Carrie's mom gave us that place to just get away for the night, because I couldn't be there. And for the longest time, I hated that my room felt like a trap, like a box, because my room, that's how it always was. There'd be times where he'd hit her and then he'd send her in my room in the corner, and I'd have to watch my mom after he hit her and she's all crying. No one should ever have to see their mother like that, ever. And those were my childhood memories of my parents. I rarely have, like, when she's like, "We had good times," because they used to take us on drives. There's a little town near us called Chino, and they have a lot of farms. So my dad used to call it Fartland. So he'd be like, "Let's go to Fartland." And all we would do was drive around all these fields, look at the cows, and then go home. That was all we did. And I do have good memories of him. Like, the one good memory I have of my dad as a kid, I will say, is my 6th birthday. I was in a wedding, and the wedding was on my actual birthday. And I remember I've always loved my birthday, and I was really upset because I was like, I don't want to be in this. And my dad was all like, "You're going to be the girl holding the train. Like, people are going to see you, blah, blah, blah." So we go to this wedding, we have fun, but I'm big on my birthday. So I'm expecting something when we come home, at least something of happy birthday. So we're there and we come home, and I'm like, "Where's my cake?" And they're just like, and I could see they looked at each other like, "Oh, crap." And I could see my mom's probably like, "I forgot the cake." And my dad's probably looking at her like, "You forgot the fucking cake?" Like, because everything was always my mom's fault. And so that was the one memory I have of my dad being my dad. Like, my baby girl wants this, I'm gonna get it for her. And I was like starting to throw fit. I was like, it's my birthday, I need to blow out candles. Like, I was mad. And then my dad's like, you want to blow out candles? You're gonna blow out candles. So they ordered me a pizza and they put candles on it.
I love
so
it.
that was my pizza cake, and that's my dad made that reality, and that's one of my favorite memories of him.
When's the last time that you spoke to your dad?
Actually, I saw him last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
So what is the relationship like today?
I keep it very at arm's length, I was it like 2 months ago, I kind of forced my dad to come to my brother's house because, like I said, he doesn't make time to, go see my brother,
Right.
go see the kids. And I can see it hurts my brother. Like, I know he's an adult and I know it's his relationship. And a part of me is a little happy that he understands how my dad used to treat me, but it also really makes me mad.
Yeah.
Because even though he shouldn't be treating either one of us that way, since he only treated me that way, I feel this like, why are you doing that to him?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be there. I feel kind of like because they parentified us. My brother became my mom's like financial partner and I became her emotional one, so it was weird, a weird dynamic, but I do my best to have a decent relationship with him because he's only getting older. And the last time I saw him, he looked nothing like my dad, like how I remember him. He looks it breaks my heart a little bit, because there's still that little girl in me that wants to make him happy. And I have to keep her at bay because I need to heal her. She doesn't need him and his validation. Because I'm never going to get the validation I want from him, ever. I'm never going to, because he needs to love himself before he can truly give that to me and my brother. I don't know what my dad went through. I don't know, the drugs made him do a lot of things that were not okay. I'm like, because too, after he was gone, we went through that room he was kind of living in, and I found a lot of my underwear there. And it's like, that was just such a violation for me because I never realized that I count my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that I'm like, how long have I been doing that? Because there'd be times where there'd be like a shirt missing or something, and then it magically would appear in my closet again. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And then after he was gone and we found all his drug pipes and all kinds of crazy ass shit, and then I find my underwear, and then my cousin Cassie finds her underwear too. I'm just like, what? Something's wrong with him. Like, he needs to help himself, And I'm not judging him. I'm not trying to talk bad. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just being violated by your dad that way. Like, I don't know what would have been worse if he would have raped me or done that. Like, because you should never have your kids' underwear unless you're washing it and putting it in their drawer. That's the only reason you should ever have your kids' undergarments, truthfully, especially a girl. Like, and two, like me being around my kids, I would never, like, I yell at them because they leave their clothes places, not because, for him, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what he did. It's just, my dad has demons he needs to fight on his own. I can't fight those battles for him,
Yeah. And I think we figure out, what works best for us. And if right now, it feels right having this kind of more arm's length relationship and that's healthy for you, that's all that matters, and it seems like you've gone through different phases in life where sometimes he's not there at all. And now he, if it's a place where he can be and you still are able to, be aware of everything and still heal and be on your own. And that's all that matters for you and whatever's best for you and your family. And,
yeah.
Yeah,
I do my best. And a lot of his side of the family, like my aunts and stuff, after he got out of jail, everybody tried to help. And they all slowly started to realize how he is.
Yeah.
And, even one of my cousins helped him. And I remember his wife, she was all like, well, I got to talk to you. And I knew what she was trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just looked over at her and I was like, he took your underwear too? And then she just had this face like if she was going to reveal something to me. And I was like, honey, who do you think he had been doing that to? Why do you think he has that habit? And she was just like, so that's when my family kind of on my dad's side became divided. It was the aunts versus the kids, because the kids were all old enough now to be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, and
it's different dynamics too.
And to his different generations, their generation is like, you just don't talk about this.
Yeah.
And then very cultural. Mexicans don't talk about this, like anything, a lot of Mexican families don't believe in therapy. Like, that's things need to be spoken about. Like, you just need to talk about it. And, that's it. It doesn't have to be.
There's no shame in truth.
Yeah. And that's all.
There's nothing wrong with explaining. I think that's another misconception is people think by sharing your story, you're doing other people wrong.
And that's how everybody was making me feel.
But it's your story. It's your life too, and there's no, I think, you did your part of like, when you change names and stuff like that, that's keeping people's privacy. But that doesn't mean that you can't share your truth and your story to help yourself and help others. And that's a beautiful thing. That's taking something that was negative and making a light out of it to show other people that they're not alone. Because like you said, there were so many times when you were younger that you wanted to feel like you could relate to somebody. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And I couldn't. Like, I've become friends with some people I went to high school with that I wasn't friends with at that time.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, I didn't know you were going through all that. Like, what? Like, you're, wow, and it's just like, sometimes I don't give myself enough credit. I always play it down, and I think a lot of people do that. Cause,
absolutely.
I'm trying my best not to do that, because I matter too. My voice matters. And the way I act and how I'm so loud and obnoxious is because no one ever listened to me when I was young. Yeah. I always had to be screaming and yelling for someone to be like, okay, Vicky, we hear you. But even then I still wouldn't get, because I've always been the baby on both sides of the family. Like, on my dad's side, I was the second to the last grandkid out of 15, On my mom's side, I do have 2 younger cousins than me, but it's like, there's only 2 girls on that side of the family, and I'm the only one. Unfortunately, 2 of my cousins have, addiction issues as well. And it's just, I unfortunately have a lot of family that struggles with drug addiction, and loving an addict is so hard because you want to help them, but you can't. They need to want it, and some people just don't get it. It's just like there's a saying in Spanish, like, le gustan la mala vida. Like, they like the bad life, like, let them. No matter what you do, they keep going. Le gusta, déjalo. Like, just let them have it. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I've always learned, like, you know what? They like to live that way. That's not my reality. That's theirs.
I'm so grateful, as always, for all my guests that come on and want to share. And, it takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength, especially when you have people kind of trying to convince you, like, not to say something.
I did have some people trying to tell me, like, don't. And I just like.
Or to question it, like, are you sure you want to do that?
But that's part of the problem. And that's what I kept saying. I'm like, that's part of the issue. I shouldn't have shame about this, because there's so many things that go on and happen to people that they're still living normal lives. Like, you can still be trafficked as a woman and still live a normal life, So it's like, why can't I have lived in a domestic violence household and still look like a normal girl? Like,
and be able to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's why I want to stop, because, my mom, she volunteers for that organization, the House of Ruth. And I, going with her and then knowing that all of these women, like, especially the group that she's a part of, all of those women are survivors themselves. Like, they're all inspiring. And it's amazing to see my mom be there, Like, I'm so proud of her. I'm so grateful she's my mom. The universe gave me not the greatest father, but I'm choosing to make a positive out of it, because I am the best parts of my dad. So I'm trying to keep that. And so is my brother. He, in this day and age, for him to have a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids, and he's able to afford that in California, I'm proud of him, because who taught him to do that? My dad didn't. He didn't have an example of a man being like, you take care of your family and you got this. He didn't have that example. So my nieces and nephews, they should be grateful that, because I've told my brother before, I'm like, if me enduring what I endured made you this man, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I would not care. And if all of this is what made me be there for my kids, I'd do it again.